Hi, everyone. Good to see you again. I'm Anne Marie Green.
And I'm Vladimir Jutia. It is another historic day on Capitol Hill, where the full House of Representatives will vote whether to impeach President Donald Trump. That will happen on Wednesday. The move comes after the House Judiciary Committee released a new report overnight. Democrats say it makes the case for impeaching the president based on his abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. Republicans say there's no evidence supporting those allegations.
And a new CBS News poll finds 42% of Americans think the Senate should convict and remove President Trump from office if the House ends up impeaching him. Some say he shouldn't be convicted or put on trial at all, while 16% say it's too soon to say. Nancy Cortez has more.
I think this whole thing is a crock.
Senate Republicans ready to defend the president are signaling they prefer a speedy trial with no new witnesses.
I am ready to vote on the underlying articles.
But Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer sent a letter to Majority Leader Mitch McConnell last night detailing the witnesses and timeline Senate Democrats want to see. He proposes that Chief Justice John Roberts, who will preside over the trial, issue subpoenas to 4 administration officials, including acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney and former National Security Advisor John Bolton, who were both asked to testify in the House impeachment inquiry but did not appear. In a statement, McConnell's office responded that the majority leader has made it clear that he plans to meet with Leader Schumer to discuss the contours of a trial soon.
I'm going to coordinate with the president's lawyers.
McConnell and the White House are coordinating on strategy.
We wouldn't be doing our job if we weren't working hand in hand with the Senate to clear the president of this charade, this sham.
On Sunday, Democrats accused McConnell of violating his duty to serve as an impartial juror.
Here you have the majority leader of the Senate, in effect the foreman of the jury, saying he's going to work hand in glove with the defense attorney. That's a violation of the oath that they're about to take, and it's a complete subversion of the constitutional scheme.
Republicans argued it's the House process that was unfair.
I think this is the beginning of the end for this show trial that we've seen in the House.
Conservative groups see impeachment as a winning issue for them. They're targeting House Democrats in 31 congressional districts that President Trump won in 2016, including New Jersey's Jeff Van Drew, a conservative Democrat facing a tough re-election, who's expected to switch parties after being wooed personally by President Trump.
So Nancy Cortez is joining us now from Capitol Hill. Nancy, why exactly does Chuck Schumer and Senate Democrats want to hear from Mick Mulvaney and Bolton and other senior administration officials? You know, what do they believe that they're going to add to this impeachment vote?
Well, first of all, these are some of the officials who were actually speaking with President Trump. Democrats have always wanted to hear from these witnesses, but they did not show up when they were subpoenaed in the House. Democrats think that it would be harder for them to refuse to appear before the Republican-controlled Senate. Beyond that, Democrats argue that the way that Republicans are talking about this Senate trial makes it sound as if it is going to be an incomplete trial where you don't hear from any new witnesses. They say that that's not how this process should go, and so they're trying to put the brakes on it. They're trying to say to the Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, hey, not so fast. We think that this should be a full trial with new witnesses, and here's who we want to hear from the most.
All right, so Nancy, what has been the response then from Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell on Senator Schumer's request and on working with him on this likely trial?
Well, he basically put out that very brief statement through his aide saying that he is going to work with Schumer to establish procedures for this trial. Some allies of McConnell pointed out that when the shoe was on the other foot, back in the 90s when Bill Clinton was being impeached, that Schumer was not that eager to hear from new witnesses then. In fact, voted against hearing from new witnesses. And so, the battle lines have kind of been drawn here. It looks like you're going to have Republicans pushing for a speedy trial, just get this out of the way. They say they know how it's going to end up. They know the president is going to be acquitted, that he's not going to be removed from office, so why drag this out? And you're going to have Democrats saying, not so fast. We want to hear from witnesses. We don't want to sweep this under the rug. We think that there should be a full airing of the evidence. So this is how this fight is going to play out over the next several weeks.
So Minority Whip Dick Durbin spoke to Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation yesterday, and he was really critical of Senate Republicans for coordinating with the White House. I want to play a little bit of that sound.
Well, I can tell you that it isn't just the president who's on trial in an impeachment proceeding. The Senate is on trial, and we have a constitutional responsibility. I hear people like Senator McConnell talking about the fact he sat down with the folks at the White House. He's already made his decision, even before he's taken his oath to promise impartial justice. He sees no need for us to spend a lot of time. My friend Senator Lindsey Graham refers to the whole thing as a crock. You know what it boils down to is we may interfere with some tea times here, but we ought to really stand up for the demeanor, the history, and the traditions of the Senate in terms of doing this in the proper way.
So, Nancy, we've talked a little bit about this before, but how common, and I know this is a very uncommon the whole thing's uncommon, right? We've only had 2 other impeachments, but how common or how expected was it for the Senate Republicans to be working with the White House? And when they say working with the White House, what does Mitch McConnell really mean by that?
Well, it was pretty surprising when Leader McConnell said point blank, I am working hand in hand with the White House lawyers. We're not going to do anything that they don't want us to do. That did seem to run afoul of, the unusual duty that senators have here to serve essentially as the jury in this Senate trial. The prosecution, if you will, is the House impeachment managers, and the defense is White House counsel. And so Democrats certainly noticed that and argued that that was McConnell kind of blurring the lines here. In reality, the idea that a Republican Senate leader wouldn't coordinate with the White House on an issue that is of huge importance to both of them is also pretty far-fetched. It's hard to draw a direct comparison because back in the 90s when Bill Clinton was impeached, Republicans controlled the Senate, so you would not have seen the 2 sides coordinating in the same way. The reason that McConnell has been saying that, frankly, is because he wants to send a message to Donald Trump himself, who has been talking for quite some time about wanting a long and robust trial with new witnesses who can exonerate him. And Republicans and White House counsel have been trying to talk him out of that. So what McConnell is saying basically to President Trump is, look, we're on the same side here. If we think that this is the best thing for you to have a short trial, and we'll only do that if that's what your lawyers think as well, then that's what we're going to do. So he's trying to serve that master, and while at the same time knowing that that's not going to look good to his Democratic counterparts.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, Nancy. And I know that a few months ago, Tom Daschle, who was a minority leader during the impeachment of Bill Clinton, wrote about the commonality and the fair trial process that the Senate was able to conduct during President Clinton's impeachment with his counterpart, who was the majority leader, Trent Lott. Times are very different right now when you have somebody like Lindsey Graham, who at one point told a reporter, if it turns out that there is a quid pro quo, I'm going to have real problems with that. Then Mick Mulvaney says there was a quid pro quo. Then Lindsey Graham says, well, I don't care about that anymore.
Right.
And so what you're seeing essentially is Republicans that have coalesced around this defense around the president, and they are not moving. On the other hand, why is it that moderate Democrats are facing such a tough choice when it comes to this? You do see a little bit of fracturing from some of those moderate Democrats in certain districts where President Trump is popular, unsure as how to move forward. But you don't see any of that with Republicans. Even those, Nancy, that are retiring are sticking with the president.
Right, and that is a very important point. If you look at polling in the Republican Party, it shows that President Trump is still quite popular among Republican voters, and so there isn't very much incentive for Republicans to break ranks. I do think, though you hear some noise from moderate Democrats right now, let's see what the final vote tally is. Because for some of these swing district Democrats, they may see a benefit in being publicly undecided until the end, in saying, gosh, this is such a difficult decision for me. I'm really not sure what I'm going to do. I'm taking this very seriously. I'm looking at all the evidence, basically in showing that they're not making a hasty decision based purely on party loyalty, but that they're really wrestling with this. At the end of the day, I think it's going to be a very small number of House Democrats who actually go ahead and vote no. Just this morning, Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan is one of those Democrats from a swing district who had been saying she was undecided. She just came out and said, as we expected, that she will be supporting the articles of impeachment at the end of the day. And I think that that's probably what you're going to see more of over the next couple of days. But these Democrats do derive some benefit from holding out until the very end, showing those independent and Republican voters who might be disappointed that at the very least they struggled with this decision.
So then what are we to make of Jeff Van Drew, who is choosing to sort of go to the other side, join the other party? Is this a sideshow, or should we sort of take this as an example of just how divisive this process is?
Well, Republicans are going to argue that this is a huge deal, that this is a sign of fracturing within the Democratic Party, that Democratic leaders pushed their members too far. They even pushed one of their own members right out of the Democratic Party. The reality is a little more nuanced than that. The reality is that Jeff Van Drew, who frankly is not from a district that is quite as competitive as some of these other Democrats who are voting for impeachment, but he came out very early on, said that he did not like this process. He was not in favor of impeachment, and that really rankled some Democrats to the degree that he got some pretty intense challenges in his that are going to, could have made a primary for him quite difficult, and he lost a lot of support institutionally from the party. And so, despite the fact that in addition to the fact that he got a lot of encouragement from President Trump himself to take this step, Van Drew may have also calculated that the best way for him to hold on to his seat, or at least to try to, was to change parties, that perhaps he was going to have a really difficult time because he was facing so much of a challenge from the left. The challenge for him is that he won't necessarily be welcomed with open arms by the Republicans in his New Jersey district either, because he has voted with Democrats on a number of other issues that are important to Republicans. So he's going to have a tough re-election fight no matter what.
Also, didn't he endorse Senator Cory Booker for the presidency?
Yes, exactly. That is a perfect example of one of the things that could make it a little difficult for him to ingratiate him with voters in his new party as well.
Oh, he's got a few job openings available if anyone's looking. Nancy, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So just another reminder, we've been documenting every single moment of these hearings in real time on our website. You can catch up on what you may have missed. Just check out our live blog. It's at cbsnews.com/impeachment.